Hey everyone, it's Miss Bullock. I'm going to go over one of our poems from our poetry packet this evening. We're looking at Transcendentalist poetry. So we're going to have our pizza and poetry. I had some pizza. And we're going to go over some poetry. I got my food for the soul here, food for the stomach right here. So we're looking at a sonnet here by Jones Very. So Jones Very was transcendentalist. He's very, very spiritual, very Christian. Intense Christian, intensely spiritual person. He kind of freaked out even the very transcendentalist people in the transcendentalist group, such as Emerson, Thoreau, and all of them. They had their own club for transcendentalism and published their own magazine for transcendentalist writings. But they liked him, but they kind of freaked him out. He kind of freaked them out a little bit. This is him. That's Jones Very. Okay, let's cover him up now because he kind of scares me. I don't want to have nightmares. He kind of believed that he was chosen by God to be like this great teacher who was going to share revelations, divine revelations from God. He believed that all of his writings were divinely inspired by God when he went out into nature. So he wrote a bunch of sonnets, like 100 or something. And he also wrote, oddly enough, essays on Shakespeare, claiming that he was also divinely inspired, but he didn't have full wisdom or whatever to be a true teacher from the Lord. He was from Salem, Massachusetts, but as you can tell from when he was alive, not Salem, Massachusetts, known for burning women and men at the stake for being witches. But yes, that's Salem, Massachusetts. But about a little over 100 years later. So we're gonna read his poem here. This is not one of his more intense poems, but we're gonna look at it because it shows a strong connection to nature, which we've been seeing in some of our other transcendentalist poems. And this is, like the other poems we've looked at, a sonnet. So we're gonna slice it up. We're gonna dissect it. There's your beautiful imagery. Some of you guys, I'm surprised you guys haven't done any dissecting in high school. It's just one of those great high school experiences, like, homeroom, like, having boyfriends and girlfriends and all that. It's just one of those experiences in high school that you're bound to have, and it's often gross, but it's there. So let's slice up this poem. I'm gonna use my little line here. Let's use red because it stands out, right? Okay, so we know this sonnet consists of 3 quatrains. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure, you probably can't even hear, but I got my Uncle Iroh music inspiring my transcendentalist mood. Yes, you should check out that video, it's pretty cool. Anyways, so we're gonna slice it up right here because a quatrain is 4 lines that go together, right? Quattro. There's one. I am not very good with my cutting today. It's really sloppy. Jamboard I don't think has a straight line maker. Let me see. Nope. Okay. And there's our 3rd quatrain. Remember, each quatrain represents a different point or different goal of the poem. Sometimes the goal of that quatrain is to set something up, to change perspective, what have you, just making a point. Each quatrain has its own purpose. And the couplet, as we said before, is like the epiphany, what is the main takeaway? What is the message that is being presented by the speaker? Okay. So let's look at what we have here. Let's read it. Do our first read through. The bubbling brook doth leap when I come by, because my feet find measure with its call. The birds know when the friend they love is nigh, for I am known to them, both great and small. The flowers that on the lovely hillside grow expect me there when spring their bloom has given. And many a tree and bush my wanderings know, and e'en the clouds and silent stars of heaven. For he who with his Maker walks aright shall be their Lord, as Adam was before. His ear shall catch each sound with new delight, each object wear the dress which then it wore. And he, as when erect in soul he stood, hear from his Father's lips that all is good. It is good. Okay. All right, let's look at what we got in each quatrain first. So let's first look at what's happening in each section so that we can then take it a little deeper. We're doing our first read through, which is our level 1 annotations. We're just trying to figure it out, like what it means first. So it says here that the speaker, it's in first person here, he's going through nature. He's walking by a brook. The birds know him, okay, and he is known to them all the animals, great and small, okay. And yes, the entire reason I used Jamboard is because I love the lasers. Let's play with that. Something we can look up for vocabulary is measure, because I mean we know what measure is, but it seems a little bit weird here because we're used to seeing measure like in math, a verb, and here we know it's not a verb. The feet find what? We see subject, feet, find is the verb, and we have a do here, measure, a direct object. We know that direct objects, objects answer what, and they're nouny in nature. So we're not used to seeing measure as a noun. Let's look it up. I already have it pulled up actually. Here we go. Boom. All right, so we know we're not looking at a verb here. We're looking at a noun. A plan or course of action taken to achieve a particular purpose. That looks like it makes a lot more sense than standard units. So let's say a course of action taken to achieve a particular purpose. Going back, my feet find action that, what did it say? An action taken to achieve a particular purpose. Their feet are walking through nature, are finding that action to achieve the particular purpose, that purpose being to go out and find, himself and nature, which is, often what we see in romantic and transcendentalist writing, an inner journey that is, especially in transcendentalism writing, spiritual. Okay. So we're setting up the context here in our first quatrain. We're setting up the context of him walking through nature. Then the next quatrain, we're looking at him giving further we're further expounding on the main point here, that nature is responding very openly to him walking through. The flowers expect him, the trees know him, and the clouds and the silent stars of heaven know him. And it's interesting that we get that reference to heaven there, because we're talking a very Christian spiritual thing going on. So here we're seeing nature's response to man's presence in nature. They like him there. Okay, the flowers like him there. And then and the trees and the clouds and the stars expect his company. It's just natural to them. Now this here is an interesting change, and we'll talk about the tools used in a minute that the writer uses to change the tone. But here uh, we see what happens as a result of this presence in nature. This is how it ought to be, as it was before. Remember, in romantic writing, we have a fascination with things past. He is fascinated with the way things were at the beginning of time, according to Christian religion. And this is what man does when he's in nature. His ears shall catch each sound with new delight, and then the nature wears the dress it wore back in the beginning. You know, it looks the same as it was in the beginning. So we're getting a fascination with things past, and we're seeing here how it should be when man is with nature. Okay? And then the main takeaway is when he's here and he is erect or upright or righteous in soul, he's going to hear from his Father's lips. That is capitalized, so we're assuming he's talking about God here. All that is good, that all is good, which is a reference to an allusion to what was said in Genesis when God created the earth, that it is good. Okay? Now let's look at some of the tools that were used. That's our level 1. We looked at our vocabulary. We did a summary. So now let's look at the tools that were used to create this art. Let's move some of my boxes. All right. So the first items I see here that we can annotate for are alliteration, like bubbling brook. I see personification here because the brook, the water, is leaping. The birds know him and they love him. And then we get this motif of isolation because he's alone in nature. Kind of, I guess, unless you want to count the birds and the flowers and the brook. What else can we look for? We can also annotate for the theme of the connection between God, nature, and man, this idea of oversoul. That there is a connection that can be had between nature, God, and man, and this can be mystical or religious or Christian or everything. Jones Very is sometimes described as kind of a mystical man. In fact, a lot of people thought he was crazy because, you know, he claimed that he was a divine teacher from the Lord, like more than a preacher, because he achieved this idea, this connection between God and nature and man that others could not even Shakespeare. Okay. um, what else? Okay, so now we're going to look at the shift in the third quatrain. It's really important. I'm running out of time here. This enjambment, which is basically this idea that we have a line that continues to the next line, and it kind of breaks. This draws attention. It kind of goes beyond the sing-songy, every line is complete and stops at the 10th syllable. We're going to the next line, and it kind of jars us, jabs us, if you will, and draws attention to it. He who is with his maker walks right, just like in the Garden of Eden. Also, we get a shift from first person to third person, and this really changes the tone, kind of gives it a more sense of beyond himself. Like, I'm beyond just me and nature now. It's outside of me. I've transcended now. All right, it's transcended me. And then this final takeaway is that he can become one with God, just like Adam was one with God when he walked in the Garden of Eden. Thanks for watching.